Thank you, Jamie. I just celebrated 35 years of practice. I never pictured, after I graduated from college at Middlebury, that I'd ever end up living in Vermont. I thought at the time, as a single man, it was the most calm, boring place anybody could ever be in. But, you know, after my training in medical school and residency, which was very secular, I can't remember, except Christmas and Easter, I don't think I ever went to church during that time. But you know, I was raised in the church. My parents, one was Episcopalian, the other was Methodist. We went to a fairly fundamentalist church. I always went to vacation Bible school, confirmation classes, Friday night youth group. Man, was that hard. 2 hours of youth group at the end of a week. But I did it. And you know, I always felt that I did it not because I was forced to. It was kind of what you did. I never felt myself a strong Christian until about 12 years ago when Louis Madura came up to me after church and said, you know, we're starting an Alpha course. I think you might enjoy it. Well, I didn't go that year, but I went the following year, and it was really transformational. And the thing that really impressed me the most was getting around with people and doing a healing ceremony. People actually putting their hands on each other and praying for each other. And when they did that to me, I didn't feel particularly suffering, but you know, as most of us have experienced, I wept. I felt this incredible warmth around me. And you know, after that, I found NCS, and our NCS chapter, met a bunch of guys that I would never really think that they were necessarily strong Christians, but I understood how strong their belief in God was. And I think these are among the 15 closest friends I have, even though I don't always see them every single day. They're the people that when the chips are down, if I lose a job or lose my health, or if I'm dying, I really want them to be there and ministering to me. You know, I entered primary care. I'm in internal medicine. I take care of a lot of older people. I do home visits from time to time around at a nursing home. One long ago that I met my friend who's a rabbi and a comedian. And he heard that I was going to talk to an NCS chapter, and he said, well, tell him this story. Tell him the story about a rabbi who was going to a nursing home. And every week they would parade out the people in his synagogue that were having a birthday that week. So there were 3 women that were out there. And he went to each of them, asked their name, Harriet. And then, how old are you, Harriet? I'm 87 years old, Rabbi. Well, may you live to 120. Our great prophet Moses lived that long and see the promised land. The next person, Sylvia. Sylvia, how old are you? I'm 97, Rabbi. Well, as a prophet, Moses carried the tribes of Israel to 120 years. May you live that long, too. And finally, Esther was the last one, very old lady in a wheelchair. How old are you, Esther? And she goes, Rabbi, I'm 120 years old today. And he said, have a nice day. So that's Rabbi Bob. You know, medicine has changed a lot. The thing I liked about internal medicine is you get to know adults, you take care of them throughout their life. I really wanted to practice in the community. I picked Manchester because it was a small community and I wasn't constantly being surrounded by specialists who were trying to take over care of my patients. I wanted to do the whole Megillah. And you know, it was pretty crazy at first. At one point I had 2,500 patients in my practice. I was seeing 25, 30 people a day. I was spending a lot of weekends in the office catching up on charts and phone calls and labs. And I began to see, like many doctors are feeling, myself drifting away from patients. I was spending a lot of time looking at computer screens, checking off checkbox. I was working for a hospital system at the time that was dictating more or less how much time I would have with each patient. And I really felt that science and technology were putting a squeeze on the humanity, on the relationship that doctors have with their patients. And as I got more involved in Alpha and NCS, I began to realize, wait, God is in this exam room. He's here. He's in every part of my visit. I'm just not allowing him to come in here. And I needed to really acknowledge that God was there. I started to think about, after I left an NCS meeting and people were praying for each other, that maybe I could just try praying for 1 or 2 patients that day. And I looked for an opportunity, and of course I found it in a couple people I knew from church. And interesting, they had kind of a mixed feeling about it. They thanked me for doing it. It was a really short, sort of perfunctory prayer. But I don't know, I got a sense that I was, when I prayed, I got a chance to reinforce that I really thought that person sitting in front of me was a good person, that they had, many people were broken, bereft, they had deep-seated problems, they weren't sure about their marriage. I found that a lot of people had irreconcilable problems with back pain, chronic headaches. And at the root of it, I began to discover that many of them were devoid of a feeling that God's grace was really with them. And through prayer, I thought I could kind of emphasize some of those things. I found that really everything in medical practice was potentially enriching their lives, and that they could leave the room feeling that their spiritual life was as important as their blood pressure and their medication list. About 8 years ago, I realized that a traditional practice wasn't going to work like this. I really didn't have time, with 30 patients a day to do anything like do comprehensive care, including prayer. So I told my patients I was making a change, and I became a practitioner of personalized health care, or as people know, a concierge physician. And I've kind of wrestled with it because I really enjoy taking care of the poor. I will tell you that I do have some scholarship patients that I've taken care of over the years, and I think they're some of the most important people to me that anybody could imagine. Some of the people that I enjoy taking care of the most are the people that are the most downtrodden in society. About 20 years ago, one Christmas morning, I got a call cross-covering a gentleman that I knew peripherally who had HIV and Kaposi's sarcoma. And at the time, we didn't have the wealth of drugs that we have right now to help people out. And I knew that he and his partner lived on the outskirts of town. They're both wonderful men. I went out to see him, got his chart, went through all of his laboratory results, sort of silently cursed that, I was going to miss yet another Christmas morning opening presents with my girls. But, I went out there, and a really powerful thing happened. It had been snowing, and suddenly when I walked up the sidewalk around, 7 in the morning, the clouds parted, it was turned sunny, and I walked into this guy's living room, and he was on the couch, and his mother was at one end, and his partner was at the other end. And I tell you, I really saw a manger scene right there. And I looked at this man, at this face lying down, and I really thought I saw the face of Jesus lying there. And I think to this day that he asked me, a few simple questions. He goes, I'm really sick. I've had days of fever, and there doesn't seem to be a lot to, these antibiotics don't seem to be working for my pneumonia anymore. He goes, what do you think? And I said, Paul, I think you're going to die. And he had the most wonderful, enlightened look on his face, and then, thank you. Thank you so much. That means so much. Nobody has told me that. And now I can get on with my life and make plans. So, that was just an incredible experience. I really felt that the Holy Spirit was with us in that room. you do feel kind of vulnerable in the exam room anyway. You don't want to drop the ball. You don't want to miss a drug interaction. You don't want to kill people. I'm sure Bob has that feeling when he goes in the exam room and operates on people. You don't want to cause harm. And, sometimes when I ask people if they would like a prayer, I don't know what their faith background is. Not long ago, I prayed with a woman who's had neck pain due to a complication of surgery. And I prayed with her, wasn't sure how she reacted, and she said at the end, "Thank you very much." And she says, "I'm going to write something about it, about my experience." I said, "Okay, great." Not sure what I was going to get, but here it is. She emailed me, "I've been thinking about our prayers after my appointments and want very much to share my reactions with you. Having been ruined by Catholicism as a child, I have been wary of the traditional language of prayer. The theistic and exaggerated language that addresses an all-powerful male figure, the Lord, who sits in the clouds and frees the captives, etc., has never been meaningful to me. That being said, I've come to believe in an unseen power in the universe, not a persona. I feel it especially in nature and the holiness of relationships. I have had a number of deeply spiritual experiences involving encounters with wildlife. I don't know exactly what this unseen power in the universe is, but it is what I currently define as God." Back to the prayer issue. When you asked if I wanted to pray with you, I hesitated only because I didn't know what to expect. I'm very glad I said yes. What happened for me that first time was this. 1, I understood that you saw how desolated I was about all that has happened to me. 2, I knew that you had taken a risk in asking. 3, I realized you saw a different future for me than I was able to imagine myself. And 4, I felt your caring in a very powerful way. It was a holy moment, and I was strengthened by it. So thank you. I feel blessed. So, I'm going to continue to do that. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it on every patient or in every situation, but I think it works, and I think that it gives me an added understanding. I think that I know prayer really works to heal people, and as we talk to people who are desolate, longing, hoping, they're completely empty, they're bringing all those things into the exam room in a very definite way. And, as Rachel Held Evans spoke about, seeing God, God surprises us by showing up in ordinary things, in bread, in water, in words, in sickness, in healing, in death, in a manger of hay, in a mother's womb, in an empty tomb. Church is what happens when somebody taps you on the shoulder and whispers in your ear, "Pay attention. This is holy ground. God is here." Thank you very much.